Alright, in a week I'm going to Italy, so I wanted to challenge myself to see how much Italian I can learn before I leave.
Okay, yeah, this is for sure a silly little challenge to see how fast I can learn a language and humble brag about my language skills. I won't deny that. But the reason I even thought about doing this is because I have a very strong opinion when it comes to travel and language. I believe that as a visitor to another country, it is your responsibility to make an effort to minimize the burdens you put on locals. And one of these ways is language. You don't have to learn a whole language in a week, but at least put in some effort into learning some basic phrases.
My goal isn't to be able to speak fluently because that's not possible. I just want to see how far I can push myself in 7 days. So my plan when I get to Italy is to find someone to have a conversation with and to see if I can keep up. I do know a little bit of Italian already. 14 years ago, I bought a beginner's workbook that I worked through over the course of a couple months, but I haven't used my Italian since then. I really don't have much Italian to work with. It's not enough to have a conversation. I'm just going to speak right now on the fly to give you a sense of how much I know. Io mi chiamo Dani, ho 28 anni. Io voglio imparare l'italiano. Vado imparare questa settimana e voglio andare all'Italia. I don't know how I did, but that's it. I can put together some basic sentences. I'm pretty sure those sentences weren't even completely correct. So yeah, I have a lot of work to do.
Alright, so the approach I'm going to be taking is one I developed a couple years ago when I was learning Brazilian Portuguese. But this time I'm going to be putting it under a really big time crunch. For the rest of the video, I'll be breaking down my methodology.
Since I only have 1 week, I have to train my ear as fast as I can, right? This is where method 1, active listening, comes in. The way this works is I listen to a line of a song, and then I write down what I think I heard. Then I just repeat this process for the rest of the song. I go line by line until the song's complete. Once I'm done, I pull up the lyrics to the song and I compare what I wrote to the lyrics. Wherever I make a mistake or wherever there's something wrong, I just note it down in a different color on my piece of paper. Then I study it for a bit, then I go back to the song and I repeat the same process until I can write the whole song without any mistakes. Apart from training your listening, what happens is that the more you listen to songs, the more you'll start to notice that there are certain words that keep popping up. And so what I like to do is once I've been able to write a song completely without any mistakes, is I translate the lyrics and I focus specifically on the words that have been popping up either a lot in that one song or across different songs. And I slowly start building my vocabulary in this way. So this is my downtime where I'm listening, not to understand though, I'm just listening to enjoy.
For this, I've chosen a Netflix series, and I'll be watching an episode a day. So a lot of Netflix coming up, but hey, I'm not complaining.
Just by the fact of there being a storyline, I'll start to pick up on words that are repeated a lot. And because this is a passive exercise, what really matters here is just the pure amount of listening that I'm doing. The reason I'm doing this is because every other aspect of my strategy requires a lot of effort and a lot of brain power. So it's a way for me to still learn, but without putting in much effort. I want to talk a little bit about how I actually use Netflix. So I always watch in Italian, and I always put subtitles in Italian. No English, neither in the audio nor in the subtitles. The reason I do this is because, especially if you're a beginner learning a new language, when you're listening, it can be really hard to understand when one word ends and another word starts. And so the more you listen and read in the target language simultaneously, you start to be able to identify where these words start and where they end.
Alright, I just want to say that developing an ear for a language is like growing the roots. It's where you gotta start if you want to see some fruit. You can't speak well if you don't know what the language sounds like? And also, what is the point of learning how to speak if you don't even know what the other person is saying back to you? If we think about babies, they spend a whole year of their life, if not more, just listening, before they can even put words together. I believe that nature teaches us the best way to do things, so for that reason, I focus most of my efforts on listening.
But of course, listening is only one half of learning a language, right? You still gotta learn how to speak. So I'll be working on this through what I call speech mimicking. Speech mimicking is listening to speech like a podcast, for example, and just repeating out loud what you're hearing. Just by understanding a language really well doesn't mean that you can speak it. When you're learning a new language, your mouth has to get used to moving in new ways. And so kind of before even speaking, you have to practice speaking. So I'm gonna be using a podcast on Spotify for this. And my only goal here is to repeat the sounds that I'm hearing. I'm not even listening for understanding.
Dopo colazione cosa fa? Mi lavo sempre la faccia, I denti.
Okay, so the next part of my learning approach is my favorite, verbs. I'm a verb freak, and for good reason. Look, verbs are the meat of a language. I mean, you can't even have a sentence without a verb. So I like to go wild and I create these charts in Excel where I take the 20 common most verbs and I write out all of their conjugations and all of the most used tenses. I'm talking about a lot of tenses, like 15 tenses. So what I do is I take all of this information that's on the Excel chart and I physically copy it down onto flashcards by hand. And then I just study these flashcards over and over and over and over again. Okay, look, this probably sounds wild, but hear me out for a bit. I've studied Portuguese, French, and Spanish up until now. All of these languages are Romance languages like Italian. The verb tenses and when to use them are more or less consistent across all of these languages. There's a little bit of variation, but I don't have to relearn when to use a certain verb tense. The only thing I have to do is learn how to conjugate verbs. So it's just a game of memorization.
Ho, hai, ha, abbiamo, avete, hanno.
All right, so I just wanted to pause and think about how things are going so far. One thing I'm happy with so far is my progress with the verbs. Making these flashcards is a really good investment. It was pretty daunting right at the beginning, but the more I was reviewing, the more I realized that actually the less memorization I had to do because I started to understand these patterns, and these patterns basically stay the same across different verbs. So this is what I'm working with. This is half of all the verbs I have to learn right now and all the tenses, but I'll get there. Okay, so the last part of my approach is high frequency vocabulary. I actually dread studying vocabulary because unlike verbs, there's no end to vocabulary, right? Think of all the different contexts. For example, you go and get a haircut, you go to a restaurant, you take a taxi. There is a whole set of vocabulary, and there are many, many, many different contexts. So I find vocabulary to be extremely overwhelming. Given that I only have 1 week, right, to learn Italian right now, it doesn't make sense for me to try and learn everything. I gotta be laser focused. And so that's why it's important that I focus on the most frequently used words. What I'm referring to are things like pronouns, I, you, he, she, we, it, they, prepositions, and then other small grammatical words. This is gonna be a little bit more passive, where through my listening, through my watching TV, I'm gonna start picking up on the words that are used a lot. And naturally, I'll just start to understand them. And whenever I still don't understand, I'll do some research online. I'm feeling pretty overwhelmed. I feel like I'm lacking vocabulary because I'm focusing so much on grammar. But you have to prioritize something, I guess, and that's my choice, is to prioritize grammar. And I guess the reason is because you need good grammar to be able to even form sentences, right? And it's easier to improvise when it comes to vocabulary than grammar. For example, if I don't know the word for glasses, then I can just go like this. I can use body language. I can find another way to explain the word I'm looking for using words that I already know. But when it comes to grammar, there's no way to really find a substitute for a tense that you're missing. And so I feel like I made the right choice, prioritizing grammar over vocabulary. I guess that's it.